Imagine a tanker truck overturned on the highway, or a toxic chemical leaking inside a factory. In those moments, you've got zero margin for error. For the first responders walking into that danger zone, the most critical decision they'll make is about the gear they're wearing. And that's where this incredible system comes in, a system designed for one thing: survival. We're talking about the 4 levels of personal protective equipment, or PPE.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the why, the system itself and why it even exists. Then we'll dive deep into each level, from the full-on moon suit of level A all the way down to the basic work uniform of level D. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at how these pros actually make these life-or-death choices when the clock is ticking.
Okay, first things first, you've got to understand that these levels aren't just some random collection of gear. No, this is a standardized system, a framework put together by OSHA and the EPA to bring order to absolute chaos. It's about creating a repeatable, reliable set of safety rules for the most dangerous situations you can imagine. So what exactly are we talking about here? Well, just think of them as 4 distinct tiers of protection, simply labeled A, B, C, and D. Each letter represents a very specific recipe of gear. What you're using to breathe, what's protecting your skin, your eyes, everything is tailored to the specific type of threat a responder is facing. You know, getting this right is a serious balancing act. This system gives teams a clear playbook so they can make smart decisions in a split second. It's all about hitting that sweet spot between having too much protection, where you could literally pass out from heat stress, and not having enough, which, well, could be fatal. It allows teams to assess the risk and adapt on the fly. Let's start at the very top with level A. This is the whole shebang, the highest level of protection possible. Think of it as being completely sealed off, totally isolated from the outside world. This is the gear you break out when the hazard is a total unknown, incredibly toxic, or can literally soak right through your skin.
So let's break down what that looks like. The suit itself is what we call fully encapsulating and vapor tight. Nothing gets in. But here's the absolute key detail. The breathing apparatus, that's the SCBA, is worn inside the suit. This creates a self-contained bubble of clean, breathable air, completely cutting the responder off from the poison outside.
So when do they use this stuff? Level A is for the absolute worst-case scenarios. We're talking about responding to a mysterious chemical cloud, a massive toxic gas leak, or any time a chemical can be absorbed right through the skin. The rule of thumb is, if you don't know what you're walking into, you start with level A, period.
All right, let's take one step down to level B. Here, the focus changes just a little bit. You still need the highest level of protection for your lungs, but the immediate threat to your skin isn't quite as severe. In other words, the #1 priority is protecting what you breathe.
And you can see that change reflected right in the gear. The responder is still using that same high-level SCBA for their air supply, but look, it's now worn on the outside of the suit. And the suit itself is different too. It's not a vapor-tight bubble anymore. It's a chemical-resistant splash suit designed to protect from liquids, not invisible gases. So you'll see level B getting used for things like the initial entry into a known chemical spill. Maybe the airborne concentration of the stuff is really high, or the oxygen levels are dangerously low. But the chemical itself isn't a major risk for skin absorption. Here, it's all about the lungs.
So let's put them side by side to really nail this down. Level A is all about total vapor protection, which is why that air tank is inside the suit. Level B is for liquid splash protection, so the air tank can be worn on the outside. That's the critical difference, and it all comes down to one simple question. Is the main threat a gas or a liquid?
Now we get to level C, and this is where we see a huge shift in how responders get their air. This level is only used under very strict conditions. You have to know exactly what the chemical is, you have to have measured its concentration in the air, and you have to be positive that it can be filtered out.
And here's the real game changer. The SCBA, the air tank, is gone. It's been replaced by what's called an Air-Purifying Respirator, or APR. This is basically a mask that uses special cartridges to filter out specific contaminants from the air you're breathing. The suit, though, is pretty similar to what you'd see in Level B. It's all about splash protection.
This makes Level C perfect for things like cleanup after an emergency is under control, or for decontamination work where you know air monitoring has shown the chemical concentrations are low. But, and I can't stress this enough, you never use Level C if you don't know what the hazard is or if the atmosphere is what they call immediately dangerous to life or health. A filter just won't cut it in those situations.
So, B versus C, what's the bottom line? It's all about where your air is coming from.
With Level B, you're bringing your own clean air in a tank, which is why you can go into a low-oxygen environment. With Level C, you're just filtering the air that's already there, which means you have to have normal oxygen levels and know exactly what you're filtering.
And finally, we get to Level D. This is the lowest level of protection, and honestly, you can think of it less as hazmat gear and more like a standard work uniform. It's for areas where there are absolutely no known chemical hazards present.
You're not going to see any fancy respirators here. We're talking about basic coveralls, safety boots, and maybe some safety glasses or a hard hat if the job calls for it. The important thing to remember is that Level D offers no real protection against chemical splashes, vapors, or dust.
So this is what you'll see on the support crews working in what they call the cold zone, far away from any contamination, or on people doing maintenance work in an area that's already been tested and confirmed to be 100% safe.
Okay, so now that we know the what each of these 4 levels is, the big question is how. How do these professionals make a life-or-death call on which level to use? Well, it is definitely not a guess. It's a very systematic process.
Yeah, incident commanders don't just wing it. They follow a clear process like this one. They start by figuring out what the hazard is and how it can get into your body. Can you breathe it in? Can it soak through your skin? They look at the environment and check out number 5. This is the golden rule. When in doubt, they always err on the side of more protection.
And that brings us to what is really the core philosophy, the mantra of all hazmat response, and it's this. It's always safer to scale down from maximum protection than to regret not scaling up. Think about it. You can always take gear off once you know an area is safe, but you can never go back in time and put on more protection after you've already been exposed.
So there you have it. From the complete isolation of Level A to the simple work uniform of Level D, this system provides a clear language of safety for some of the most chaotic scenes imaginable. And now that you can speak that language, I'll leave you with this. The next time you see a hazmat team on the news, what level of protection are you going to be looking for? And what will that tell you about the danger they're about to face?